Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. In today's episode, we talk all about being intentional about the life you're creating, the intricacies of working together while being in a relationship, and how to learn from others who have gone before you. Now let's get into it.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Tonight we are welcoming Ryan and Calie Bowles. Ryan was frontman of a metal band, and he started a design business on the road to support the merch of his band and the other bands. From there, he built a course to help creative freelancers, and now he specializes in helping people grow, engage, and monetize their Facebook groups. His community is over 2,000 strong, and over the last year alone, he's assisted more than 150 entrepreneurs to help make over $1 million. And he did it all while securing the heart of his new wife and queen, Calie. Calie Bowles has over 10 years in the customer service and management experience, but changed careers to follow her creative nature to become a costume and seamstress in the film and TV industry. She's had the pleasure of working on costumes for some big films, including Pirates of the Caribbean, Thor, and Aquaman. When she met the man of her dreams, she jumped across to support Ryan in the business, and together they are chasing their big goals and big dreams. Welcome to the podcast, team.
Thanks, guys. Pumped to be here.
Yeah.
So just to kick off, can you just tell us a little bit about the two of you and how you met?
It's a fun story.
Off you go.
We'd met a couple of times through mutual friends and playing sport. So Ultimate Frisbee was sort of like the connector.
Amazing.
And yeah, there's anywhere from like 20 to 50 people in sort of that community that would come and play on and off. And so we didn't see each other every week. I was there to sort of like see, all right, cool, I've got to get out of my circle because I'd been single for a while and hadn't met someone that really, shared the same values. And that's sort of how I was like assessing Frisbee, like who's on the playing field.
I thought, it's just such a great bunch of people. Half of them are like married already. And I thought, there's guys and girls, they're all really like top people. Surely they're just like all dating each other. And when I saw Ryan, I was like, he's like Mr. Nice Guy. Surely he's taken. And that was my first.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that people were looking at me thinking I was the happily taken, nice guy.
You're giving off
the wrong vibes.
Solid vibes.
Yeah.
And so we started playing Frisbee, and then the official connection, we'd said hi there, but I was playing for that group's touch footy team as well. And then Calie got invited one rainy evening to come and fill in because we didn't have enough chicks playing. And she was on a walk on the beach. She'd done 2Ks or 3Ks already. And we were like, Just warmed up, and she ran home.
I was like 3Ks away from my home when I got this text from the friend saying, hey, do you want to fill in tonight? I was like, that's in 50 minutes. I'm 3Ks away from home on a walk. Because I'd hurt my back, so I was like just getting back into exercising. And she's like, do you want to make it a run? And I was like, okay. I actually did it. And so I did. I ran home, got changed. It started pissing rain, and I still went.
And made it for the second half. And so I knew that she was coming, and I'd thought in my mind, Calie, she was all right. Like, last time I remember her and last year. And she turned up for the second half, and she asked some of the boys on the team what my name was because she didn't even know my name.
Fully forgot his name. I was like, what's his name again?
And then it just so happened that after the game there was a free sausage sizzle on.
Which never happens. It's never happened
Never
before.
happened at the club. And we were just in line talking about what sauce we put on our bread and sausage.
Ooh, deal breaker.
Which is barbecue, of course.
Yeah.
Me too.
Hey!
Me too. Go barbecue.
Yeah, fellow barbecue.
And then we got chatting after that, and we didn't stop until sort of the whole team had got in their cars and left. The rest of the touch games had finished. The clubhouse manager had locked up. The lights from the field started to shut off. The security car was doing laps of the car park, and we were there for 3.5 hours sitting on a log in the car park, just talking and going over like every detail
of our lives
we could imagine.
I love this story because it's kind of like, what if you had been like, it's just too hard. Like, I'm not going to run home. It's just too hard, too pressure. Like, your whole story could have been completely different.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah.
And we've lived like on the Gold Coast for like the same amount of time. Our schools are literally 5 kilometres from each other. We're a year apart.
Got similar friends that we didn't know.
So many mutual friends. We've just been so close for this, like for so long, for these 20 years, and have never quite crossed paths at the right time, obviously.
So when was that fateful sausage sizzle date?
Oh, when was that? That was
April 22nd.
Yeah, April 22nd, 2019.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Amazing.
So we know that you've had a bit of a whirlwind romance since then, and you recently got married.
We did.
We did.
We had a COVID wedding.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I guess backstory a bit. We got engaged 6 months after meeting and then married 6 months after engagement. So we always believed, I guess I'm 30, 31, so, we're not just kids dating anymore that need to necessarily date for a long time to really feel it out. We'd done a lot of life experience. We'd done a lot of personal development, coaching. We've trialed and failed. We've traveled. And so, that was sort of a bit of backstory in regards to the speed of getting together.
I always knew that once it finally happened, it would be quick and it would be easy. Yeah.
We'd had lots of people tell us that as well. Like, knowing us personally, they said, mate, once you find the right person, it'll be game over, which is a good thing. It's not
game on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
COVID hit. We had a full wedding planned for May the 3rd, traditional wedding, 100 guests, the whole lot. And all of that came crashing to a halt pretty quickly, as we all know.
Yeah, then, Ryan, being an avid Star Wars fan, always wanted it to be May 4th. So we always joked, how about we sign the papers at midnight so we can...
Because May 3rd was a Sunday, and that's like a nice wedding day, not a Monday.
And the next day was a public holiday. So we planned it really well so everyone could make a weekend out of it. And we've got a public holiday every year for our anniversary. Yeah, and so we always joked about signing the papers so that we could have May 4th as our wedding day. So when COVID hit and we couldn't do our wedding on the Sunday or have it how we planned anyway, we thought, well, why don't we just move it to the Monday? Now we can.
And I got my dream come true.
So
in two senses.
I jumped on the bandwagon like, okay, if you get your special date, then I get to make us costumes. And he's like, done. And so we looked up some pictures and I was like, tell me what you want. And so I made him a full-on Jedi outfit, the robe and the undergarment.
We've had the pleasure of seeing a couple of these photos.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The coolest
you've
costumes.
gone all in. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, if I've got one chance to do this, I need to do it right. So I spent couple of long nights.
Yeah, 1 a.m., 2
getting it right.
a.m., 3 a.m. We had a lot of fun though.
So during your engagement, I know that you guys did a bit of work and got some external coaching and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We did a really good test before we got married online. It was like 290 questions. Took us about 40 minutes each. We had to do it separately, and it just asked us so many things.
And then we also did a course called Single Life, which was fantastic. So that's either for single or for divorce or someone, whatever. And we did it separate or together but separately. And then we also did like what you mentioned, pre-marriage counselling, but it wasn't a course. It was like...
It's just with really great friends of ours who've been married for 30 years.
Yeah.
And, have had their fair share of ups and downs, got 3 kids and multiple
We just
businesses.
met with them and had like a beer and dinner every night for like 3 or 6 weeks or so.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Give us the lowdown. Yeah, it's full on. Like there's so many
Totally.
there's so many conversations to have. Like, what kind of culture do we want to have in our relationship? Like intertwining fun and romance into like your daily being. Whereas for some other people, it's like, well, no, I wanna have my work self or my work
for sure
dynamic. But I don't know that people always have those conversations. It's like, well, what do we want
they
our
don't.
relationship to look like and
They
feel
just do.
like and sound like? They just do. Or it's like even just stuff like, where do you sit and eat dinner? Like, like that.
Yeah, we talk about
who
these
cooks
things.
and who does the dishes. Like,
But it's so easy to fall into a default behavior of either, eating separately because you run different routines, or that you sit on the couch and watch TV while you do that, or any of those things. But if you were to really go, okay, well, what's the culture that I want in our relationship? And then you think about it more critically and go, well, actually, that isn't a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had chats really early in terms of like when we were hanging out before we were even dating as to like what might things look like. I mean, once we started figuring out we had feelings for each other, we started to plan like, okay, is this like a relationship we consider getting married? If that's the case, then what would we want life to look like? I'd started the business. I'd been running, online information course coaching style businesses for a couple of years, and she'd done a lot of personal development coaching herself. And so I was like, cool, well, would this be something you'd entertain potentially working in or working with? And I'd seen my parents work together for 30 years, side by side, 24 hours a day, work, come home, together every single moment of the day. Never a fight, never, sure they had arguments or disagreements, but never any raised voices or anything like that. So I saw the best of marriage, and same with Calie and her parents. And so my vision was like, if I can one day when I meet this girl, create that sort of a lifestyle and relationship in a business together, that would just be incredible. So they were the conversations we were having really early on. And it wasn't until about November that, 1 or 2 days, Calie and I started working together. October? Yeah, late October or mid-October.
So obviously it's a very different dynamic from, I guess, a lot of relationships. And Nathan and I are, I guess, toe in the water in terms of working together, living together, playing together, all of that sort of stuff. How do you guys make that work?
Great question.
Yeah, great question.
I think it's a continual work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, still early days.
Yeah, but we've been working together now, so like 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now that we live together and it's been COVID, so we haven't had a lot of other.
But we love each other's company. We're the sort of couple that can spend every waking minute together. We have to actually remind ourselves, maybe
there are other people in the world we could see.
So that's a conscious thought we have to remind ourselves of.
But communication's huge. Like from the get-go, we were having very open and real conversations. Just keeping it real and keeping it open. And if something bothers you or you don't like that, like tell the other one and talk it through. I'm the type of person that's always like, I'd rather just get it on the table, have it out and move on. Like, I don't like to hold grudges or have something, wrestling with me, distracting my mind. Like, let's just deal with it and move on. So,
and practically speaking, we love a good walk on the beach. We're blessed to live close by the beach, and we'll talk through, what wins are we celebrating? What learnings are we having during all of this? What challenges are we facing?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about stuff? How am I feeling? Like, what do we want this life to look like? I just started reading Work Less, Make More, if I got that right, by James Shremko, and just talking about like, what do you want your ideal business to look like? How many hours do you want to be working in that? What do you want to do of an afternoon or a morning? What works? So we're constantly talking through those things as to what's the next step for us to add or remove things in our business and life.
Yeah, I think those conversations are really critical to have that continued growth and to continue growing together as well, I guess, to make sure you're on the same page, to make sure you're really heading in that right direction that you want to be going.
Yeah, and to the same destination.
Yeah.
I think we're very lucky too that we were both raised quite similarly. We've figured out like from early on, just through our conversations about our parents, because we've both lost a parent within 5 months of each other. He lost his dad first and then I lost my mum. And they were both a very similar personality. They were both the life of the party kind of person. Everyone loved them. They brought joy wherever they went. And they really loved their personal development and would teach it to us. And so we both had a very similar kind of parent that we lost. And so we figured out that, we were raised quite similarly. We like to treat things well. We like to, keep things in order and plan things out. And that's also been a real blessing to have that in common.
Yeah, to share that.
Yeah, but I guess that means that you have different obstacles, right? Like, just like you said, that you need to remind each other that there's other people and that there's a whole other world out there outside of each other. How do you guys, how do you keep yourself, connected to your outside network and friends and family? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, from the background that I've come from in terms of like being in a band that had a huge audience and then growing a design persona that had a big audience and now Facebook groups and big audience, it's strange to have like a huge network, but like I've always kept my friends like that I could count on one hand. So it's like this small inner circle for me, but with like a huge extended reach. And so for me, it's like as simple as looking through the top of my text messages and I know who my closest few are.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much as simple as that. I know that if have I thought of them? Have I reached out to them? I probably need to hang out with them more. And like I can cover that on one hand pretty well, even though we've got a lot of great friends. Like just some of our best friends, for me personally, are on that one hand. What's your experience been like?
Yeah, no, same. As I've gotten older, I've found that, like my quality and quantity of friends has
Got tighter.
knuckled down.
And
Yeah,
she's life of the
totally.
party. So she's life of the party, and like I'm the one that'll like have that one-on-one conversation in the corner. Yeah.
So I guess like, what does romance look like for the two of you? Like if you are working together and living together and like, do you have to carve out time for yourselves or
Date nights.
date nights and things like that?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
I feel like we're dating each other still continuously. People are like, oh, it's a honeymoon phase up to like 3 years. But I never saw that in my parents. I never saw the love, die. I'm sure, speaking with mum now, there were times that they obviously had to work on stuff. But for us, we have a lot of fun. We're in the office together here, but we're always just like mucking around, teasing each other, like laughing, all sorts of stuff. It's never like separated times
Yeah.
of like, all right,
It's just
after work,
weaved through.
we be romantic.
Yeah.
During work, we don't. Yeah, we just play a lot.
Yeah. And, I guess we're a little bit spontaneous. He knows I like surprises, so he'll just miss the turn and take me out into the valley and it's raining and it's like on a beautiful drive or whatever and just let's stop and watch a sunset and
I love that.
stuff like that. Yeah.
So the two of you are working together and you're building a business together and you're being very intentional about the life that you want to live and that you want to create together. At Fuel Collective, that's one of our core values is to love life. And it's not about, YOLO, you only live once kind of love life, but really about living intentionally and thoughtfully and giving time and space to consider, well, what is it that my ideal day or week or month or quarter or year might look like, and not just this year, but in 5 years' time, what do I want it to look like? And 10 years' time, what do I want it to look like? It sounds like you guys have had a few of those chats. Can you give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtains of what that looks like for you?
Yeah, I don't want to go into like business coach mode, but I think when you've just kicked off a new business and then you start working with, your partner in crime, whether you're married or not, it's like, we just need to bring income in, like money. We know, it's statistically proven money is the biggest cause of relationship breakdown. It revolves around money. And so we try and, we've tried always working on our relationship with money, not only our relationships with ourselves. So like at the start, it's like, all right, let's just try and bring in as much business as we can so that we can support ourselves and we're not fighting over that stuff or like, can I put $1 here or there? We're not worried about that, thankfully. And then secondly, now that we've sort of built a little bit of that freedom, it's like, okay, what is the freedom from now? Freedom from working 10, 12-hour days that, you were initially doing in the start. Freedom from being locked in here. We've got the freedom to just go down to the beach yesterday and have lunch down there and those sorts of things. So we haven't looked at like specific 5-10 year goals, but we're doing little bits in between. Like last night we were talking about what's our effective hourly rate as an entrepreneur. And then this morning we're talking as the sun rose, like, actually, no, we weren't. This was inside my head. How many hours do we want to work?
Yeah.
I was like, did we?
How many hours do we want to work a day? And what does like that look like? Yesterday, we shot off early and we went and worked out and sweated until we couldn't anymore. So yeah, it hasn't been quite long term. We know in a few years, kids, we're looking for a home currently to buy or build. There's those things ahead of us.
A big trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is really critical to do that assessment of where you are at the moment and go, all right, these are the things that we want to change, or these are the things that like might be a fundamental at the moment, but we've got an end goal to get to. Like, and it's kind of doing that assessment of like, oh, this is where we are now, and we're still building on that. But then, having that bigger vision, I guess, of where do we want to get to, and what does our life actually look like in 5 years or 10 years, or what are the things that we can improve?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it takes
and it's fun.
Yeah.
It really is.
But it also takes like some humility and I guess courage to acknowledge like, I know that we are like, we're in this season of our relationship where we're hustling, but understanding what that hustle is for and like, like you said, why are you doing it? So that we can have freedom from what? You know,
Totally.
and really, I'm sure you've probably seen it. People who, I guess, step into that default life plan of, you know, go to school, go to uni, get a job, work your way up in that job, meet somebody.
I tried it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
But that's it. And it's like, well, it takes some, I guess, some self-awareness and some introspection to go, well, what do I want my life to look like? You know, and obviously you're building
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, it really is. So how did the two of you have those conversations in a relationship where you're going, I think you're my person. Yep, I think you're my person. How do we navigate these conversations so that we can figure it out?
Yeah, I think it was a gradual conversation. It didn't just happen all at once. It was a figuring out of sort of where each other was as we got to know each other better. And then
Also, a big part, practically speaking, is like I've made the mistake before, especially when I was in the band. You know, I had a bunch of young guys. I was like 21. There was like 18 was the next, and then 16, and there was like a 13-year-old in our band too who shredded, by the way. But I'm very conscious of the mistakes.
he's married now too, right?
He's married. Yeah, he got married before us, which is crazy. Maybe you need to interview them. I don't know. But I made mistakes then that I learnt from heavily, and that was that if I was the one to set the vision and I was the one to make the plan and I was the one to guide the ship for everything, no one else was following. No one else was on board. And I learnt that lesson because, you know, some of those guys, we had tough conversations and they ended up leaving the band. Thankfully, we're all friends now, which is awesome. But I didn't want to make that mistake with my best friend of like that I just led the vision, I drove the ship, and then she just jumped on the back and followed. So it's been very conscious for me to ask her, Calie,
Because eventually I'd lose the passion for the vision, I
where
guess.
do you want to go? What do you see the business doing? What do you want to bring to the table? And then we both, you know, we've got equal share. We're both driving the train forward.
Yeah, so it's definitely an evolving conversation continually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of dating forever and this conversation about continuously dating your partner, and like you said, that, you know, there's that scientific sort of line in the sand where they say there's literally love chemicals in your blood rushing through your system for those first, you know, 2.5, 3 years. And then theoretically it falls away. And I think in a lot of ways that's become normalized. And it's like, oh yeah, it's normal that things are mediocre or things are monotone in relationships. And I guess creating the space for Date Forever, both as a podcast and as one of our core values at Fuel Collective, is really about being very intentional about continuously dating your partner, but also dating yourself. And, you know, the person that I am now is very different than the person I was 12 months ago and the person I was 12 months before that. And I'm curious to know, how do the two of you, how do you do that? How do you date yourselves? How do you maintain, I guess, a sense of growth, not just as a couple, but as individuals?
Oh, great question. I would answer by saying personally developing continually, trying new things, you know, whether it's a food, an experience, a practice, even like a different way of thinking. That's personally been a way that I'd answer that.
And I'm really creative, so I like to just find new avenues of being creative and just keeping those juices flowing. That's where I rejuvenate and really find happiness.
Yeah, and it's different for everyone. What energizes some people or what replenishes you, how you recharge is different, and getting to know how you do that really, and then how your partner does that, and then how you do that as a couple is
totally.
Yeah, definitely worth getting like familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Filling your own cup, knowing that is a really big key for sure. Yeah.
So I know that when we got married, people give kind of advice about marriage and relationship. Now that you are a married couple, what's some advice you'd impart on, you know, people who are not quite there yet?
Ooh. One that came to mind as you were saying that was some friends said, when you argue naked or fight naked.
Yeah.
We haven't had to do that yet, which I'm a bit
disappointed
annoyed at. But what do you reckon?
This afternoon he picks a fight.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's something that's held true that someone's given us as advice?
I think something we adopted really early on was just being super transparent and honest about things that we felt the other should know, whether it meant something to them or not, just to get it off your chest and just to have it out in the open while it's small before years go by and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they find out and it actually is like such a bigger thing than what it could have been if you just told them earlier on and dealt with it.
Yeah, we talked very early on in terms of relationships we had, experiences we'd had, all sorts of ups and downs within our lives. We talked about things to do with our body that we weren't confident about, like
things we'd done we weren't proud of.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
That made a big difference. And especially because we weren't living together before marriage. So, we did the whole separate home, we got married, then moved in and started life together. Some people don't do it that way, and that's totally cool. But for us, we wanted to share details so that there wasn't a shock factor when it came time to be completely honest and naked, in the literal and, metaphorical sense with each other. Another thing was that we just really love soaking up wisdom. And so we're really blessed. And I'd say we're blessed, but we're also on the front foot around finding people who have done the journey way ahead of us, whether it's our best friends that have been married 7 years or couples that have been married 1 year. But we've also got friends in their 70s and 80s who we regard as really close friends that have been married 40, 50 years. And we just learn so much from them, and we soak up that sort of wisdom from them.
They give quite frequently, and we also just ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's one of my favorite quotes. It's like, success leaves clues. It's like, if you can find somebody who's done what you're trying to do, or someone who's written a book about what you're trying to do, or, produced a docuseries or whatever it might be, somebody has overcome this problem before you. So totally. Take the shortcut. And that was definitely part of our desire to create this Fuel Collective space and this, the Date Forever podcast, is that we are 12, 13 years in, and we're learning stuff that it's like, that would have been handy to know a decade ago. And I think you're in that unconscious incompetence where you don't know what you don't know. And like you said, Ryan, the two of you have both grown up in environments where you had, loving family relationships modeled to you. Lots of people haven't.
Totally.
So, and then we enter these relationships where the Disney version is that it lasts forever and ever, and you meet the person and it's just should be easy and happily ever after. But the reality is so different than that, and somehow we're just meant to figure it out without, I guess, a manual.
Totally.
So I really love that you're nurturing this community of people or connections that you're learning from, because I feel that that's something that we do too. Yeah. It's like these people who have overcome relationship problems or relationship hurdles, or not even that, but they've gone through that stage of life together as a partnership in what is a thriving relationship, not just a relationship that it's truly growing, thriving, empowered, happy, and going somewhere.
And I guess the thing is too, even if you've had role models like your parents or other people in your life, you don't actually get to have that sneak peek behind the curtains as to what they're doing to really keep their relationships filled up. So
unless you ask,
totally.
Right?
Yeah, unless you ask.
Or unless they pass away, that's when the questions start to come is, how did they do that? How did they overcome that? You don't ask that while people are alive. And so that's probably a good challenge for those listening, is ask them those questions. Imagine that person wasn't with you anymore. What would you want to ask them about their relationship, their business, their family, their thoughts, their mentality, those sorts of things? Because I can tell you from experience, you don't think about it until you lose them. And then you're like, wow, I now have to ask not only the other half, whoever that is. For me, it's mum, and she gets frustrated that she can't remember some of those early experiences and stuff. It's really important to ask now, especially hard questions.
Yeah, I love that, because we don't know, right? And especially we live in a social media age where everybody displays the very best parts of their lives. And it's what's really going on? I look up to, certain friends who have really beautiful relationships, and I go, okay, well, I want to emulate that, but how are they doing it? What is it that they're doing that we either are not doing, or how can we adopt that ritual or that behavior or that feeling and make it our own and make it something that will fit our relationship and what we're trying to achieve? But I don't think we always get to see I guess, the nuts and bolts or the cogs that are turning behind those beautiful relationships.
Which is why this podcast is game-changing.
Yeah, so I really appreciate
Super cool.
you coming on to share a little bit about, I guess, how you're doing it, what you're doing. I really, really love that the two of you are building a vehicle in the shape of a business to create the life that the two of you really love. So I'd love for you to just maybe give our listeners a little bit of a snippet in what, I guess, creating that vehicle has done for the two of you and where you see it going.
Definitely at the start of a marriage, something that I had aspired for is to not, that term financial freedom. It's not that, but it's not financial stress.
Yeah.
So building this vehicle has allowed us not to be in a place of financial stress, which we're so grateful for daily. And so that just, I think at the start of marriage, we've noticed, especially people getting married young, etc., you might end up with a mortgage and then it's like you have to work, you have to do things to make ends meet. And then COVID hits and it's a really tough time.
I mean, I guess if we can get through COVID, we can get through a lot of things. So if we can,
that's awesome. Yeah.
If we can put in some, some structure and some goals and some habits now that will work for us for the future, then yeah, that's what it's done. It's been great.
Yeah. So we're working towards more and more structure for sure.
But also that obviously your business in helping other people build communities and then monetize those communities based on their own knowledge and expertise, because it's not just for you, is it?
No, totally. Yeah, that's something that really empowers us.
Yeah.
Is seeing someone else's business get affected because of us. But not only that, their clients get affected. So it's like this ripple effect that we get to experience someone else's results based on a client of ours, and it's just like, that's amazing. And we don't even know the extent of the results that come. We don't even hear about a tenth of them.
But that brings us huge joy and
fulfillment,
keeps
purpose.
Our fuel going here for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Very cool. Hey, so we've talked to kind of about like date forever and then love life. Our third core value is to be the change. And what that really means for us is to be the change in your own life in terms of taking accountability for what you have the ability to change, but also to be the change in the bigger world and be the change that you really want to see. So to say thank you for joining us on the podcast today, we've given 100 days of clean water to a community in Zambia. And
so cool.
So awesome.
So we've done this via our partnership with Buy One, Give One. And the beauty of this project is not just that it provides clean drinking water, but it means that girls don't have to spend the day walking back and forth out of their village to collect water, which actually means they get to go to school.
So good.
So thank you so much for making that possible. We really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat with us.
I think that's an amazing initiative you guys have set up. And when we heard that, getting to chat this stuff with you guys is just a blessing in itself, but knowing that the impact goes way further and wider is huge. So we really appreciate that. And we're passionate about clean water as well. So whether it's Zambia, India, wherever, clean water shouldn't be a question. So thank you.
Yeah. So if guys have really enjoyed what you've heard today and want to connect with you or want to learn more about what you're doing in the business side of things, how should they do that?
Come hang out with us on Facebook. Add us as a friend, Ryan, Calie Bowles, and also come join our community. If you've got a Facebook group or you're a coach, or you got a business that might,
need a Facebook group,
or you think you might, come join our Facebook group. It's called Facebook Group Secrets, and we have a lot of fun there.
A lot of fun in there. Yeah, a lot of value. Can learn heaps.
Very cool.
Yeah, great community.
So before we peel off, what would be the one tip that you would give early stage relationships about success?
I was hoping you would ask because I was like, I want to share one more piece.
One more tip.
In terms of a relationship and a working environment, I got this from a good friend of mine, Ben Adams. He's got a couple of beautiful kids, an incredible wife. I was there at their wedding more than 10 years ago, and they've grown a phenomenal designer label here in Australia. And I've always admired their relationship, and they work together 24/7. She actually started the business. He came in, and now they work together, hand in hand. And so I met with him early when we were dating, and over coffee, I just said, dude, what's one piece of advice you'd give a new couple working in business together? And he said, dude, don't put a contract on it, trial for 6 months with, no contract, just to say, hey, at the end of this 6 months, let's just see, did it work? Did it not? If it didn't, that's totally fine. Don't beat yourselves up, but use it as an experiment. If it did, and you guys worked well, you kicked some goals, then start looking forward. So that's what we did. We gave ourselves like 6 months, and here we are 8 months in. We've really been enjoying it, kicking a bunch of goals and having fun. So use it as a trial if you're in a new relationship and looking to get into business together. Don't expect from the other person. Set the ground and work towards that test.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice.
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope everybody's got some golden nuggets, especially if they're thinking about going into business together.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks so much for having us. Great chat.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.